Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing really well. Sabon. In this video, I'm going to talk about what are config maps, what are secrets, when to use them, and how you create them, and how you mount it onto, or how to use it along with your pods. Let's go to the documentation of config maps. So it's an API object that is used to store any kind of non-confidential data in key value format. That is any configurations, any environment specifics, or anything that you want to store for your application, then config map is a good choice. So it helps you decouple any environment specific configuration from your container images, so that your application can't use them easily. Whereas if you talk about secrets, so it's similar to config map in that extent, but it's more towards any kind of sensitive data that you want to store, such as password, tokens, or any keys that you want to store. In that case, secrets are the good options. So talking about going back to the config map setup. So as I already told you, it's an object, right? So how do you create a config map and when to use them? So if there are, say for example, an environment specific format. So if you want a value of a variable or any kind of configuration keys that your application is using, but you want to use it for different environments, right? So for development environment, you want, say for example, a number of threads of an application that you want to run. If you want it to be configurable, say for dev environment, you want 3 instances to run, and for a production environment, if it's 30, so you can quite easily use it. So how the config file looks like, it's typically in this format. Whenever you're creating a config map in a declarative format. So here is the API version is always v1, the kind is config map, and here's the metadata. Under metadata, you have to specify the name of the config map, and then with this key data, you just add your variables like in the key value format. So these are property like keys, like each has a key and a value. But if you want to store, say for example, a property in the form of a property file, see here a game.properties, then you can use in this format like enemy.types, aliens, monsters, etc. So there are different ways that you can use a config map to configure a container inside a pod to use it. So you can either use it inside a container commands and arguments. You can use config map as an environment variable. You can add a read-only volume setup, or you can write a code to run inside the pod that uses Kubernetes API to read a config map. So in this video, what I will be showing you is how to use a config map as an environment variable, how you can use it, and also how you can mount a read-only volume to your application. Okay. So talking about now secrets. Secrets, on the other hand, like it's similar to config maps, but there are different options, different types that are provided to you. So if I go to the types of secrets, as you can see, so there are these are the certain built-in types, and these are various usages. So one is an opaque secret, another is a service account token if you want to choose, if you want to use a basic auth one, or an SSH auth, or a TLS a data for the TLS client or server. So those can be utilized. However, one caution, so users should be very much cautious about the fact that secrets are stored in the etcd database in an unencrypted format. Though it is converted, whatever strings if you're using or anything you're using, they will be encrypted to a base 64 encryption. But however, the people who has access to your etcd server can easily access that database and get hold of that secret. So the easier way would be definitely enabling encryption at rest, or enabling or configuring any kind of role-based access control privileges, so that you are following a least privilege technique to access those secrets. Restrict the secret access to specific containers, or considering the use of external secret providers. So external secret store providers, there are multiple options that are currently available. So typically people can utilize a Amazon Secrets Manager, or they can utilize Vault. If they want to go for a more open source way. And these are the current supported providers that are available for your use. Now we'll go back. Now when to use the generic uses of secrets, like how to use it. So if you want to set certain kind of environment, you can set as an environment variable for a container if your application is trying to access a database. Wants to establish a database connectivity, passwords generally could be used in secrets. And if from a private registry the kubelet wants to pull a specific container image as well, in that case secrets are also useful. Providing credentials such as like SSH keys and passwords to the pods to access any other kind of third-party APIs. How are secrets created? So if I give an example, typically over here, so this is what the secrets look like. The API version is v1. The kind is secret. Under metadata, that's the name, and under data, here it's a key in the key value format, like if you are able to see. So here is the .secret file, the name, and followed by the base 64 encoded value. So this is one way of like a use case using dot files in a secret volume. So here you can see a secret is created, and this secret dot file secret, that's the name, is mounted on one of the volume mounts as a volume mounts, and it's readily accessible through this volume location. So from the container, if they're trying to access this, it is a secret volume, they will be able to access that secret. Alternatives, there are other alternatives which we talked about. There are that's currently not in the scope of this discussion, and I've also covered the type of secrets. Right now, let's talk about how do you create a secret. So I will just spin up my terminal. And here is my terminal, for example. So how do you create a secret? So there are various ways, like first I will create a config map, for example. My config map is in the iterative format. So this is how you create a config map. So kubectl create config map followed by the name, and then you can pass the key value in this format, like from literal equal to db host localhost. So how you use it? So you basically just create a config map like this in the iterative format, and say, for example, if you want to mount something, if you want to use it from, like if you have multiple property files or multiple key values, instead of passing it from literals, instead what I am using in my case. So since I have I'm using two configurations, so I'm using like from literal. But if you have stored like db host local host and db port this value, and there are 10 or 12 more key values that you want to use it to create your config map, in that case the easier way would be to use a from file. So the from file is basically a location where your config file is there. So if you just perform this wget operation, so it's going to save your config file to a location, and you see over here configure pod container config map, and from there you can just use it, create the config map. And once you do that, you will be able to see all the details this way. So let us try to create one through from literals. So I will do that. I have created a config map. So let's try to see how it looks. Get cm app-config. So these are the details, and now -o yml, if I just add, I will see that my data and localhost is available over here. Now we have already created a data, a config file with this data like db host and db pod. Now if you want to create a secret, let's try to create a secret. So secrets are created this way, like kubectl creates secret generic that you need to pass a type of the secret, what type of secret you want, whether it's a service account, a token, or it's a TLS connectivity details, anything that you want to add over here, you can add it based on the type you need. And this is the DB password and this is the value. Let's just save it. Now let's try to investigate how this secrets look. Get secret, and this is my secret, db hyphen secret hyphen o yml. Okay, now the problem here is that the value whatever I have given is now converted into a base 64 format, and anyone who has access to this cluster or access to the Kube API server or even the HCD database, they would be able to get hold of this. So this is what I was talking about. So you need to enable encryption at rest so that it's properly encrypted and no one has access, or you use any kind of third party like other options. So now let's see how we can. I will be creating two types of pods. One is that with one I will try to use this secret data and config map data through environment variables, and another pod through like using secret data and config map data they will be able to access through a volume. So let's try to create kubectl run, say pod env is the name that I'm giving, and here the image let's try to use is nginx, and then hyphen try run equal to client and hyphen o yml. Let's try to save this pod hyphen env.yml. Okay, now pod env.yml, here I am. This is where I'm going to use the environment variable options over here. So under containers I want to use environment variables over here, right? So how do I use it? So I already have something with me. So you will find this is how, I'm not going into the details of how you actually use an environment variable in your container. So that is not currently in the scope of this video, but you can check the documentation. I will provide them for you. And so this is how you declare in case you want to use a config map. So env name, and if it's a normal string that you can pass as a value, but if it's something you are trying to extract from a secret or a config map, you need to add this value from. And from this value from there, you are passing that we are giving a config map key reference. And in the config map key, our config map name is appconfig, and that is where we are trying to extract the DB host from. Similarly, it's the same for the ports as well, DB port. And for the secrets, you see value from, and then we are giving a secret key reference. And from the secret key reference, the name we are giving is like, this is the secret name and this is the key name of that secret which is of my interest. And let's try to save it. And kubectl apply -f pod -env.yml. Okay, now let's see, my pod is created. Get pods. Okay, now what I will try to do is kubectl execc. Okay, let's kubectl execc. Then we basically want to execute -it pod -env, and then over here, okay, let's get rid of -it. then we just try to see the environment variable env. And over here, as you can see, that these are already available as environment variables. So db host, db port, and db password. So any container application that you're running, they can quite easily access these from the environment variables. Now, what is the case if you don't want to do that, rather you want to use it as a volume mount? In that case, the things will be a bit different. Those variables, those values that you specifically want would be available in a specific location, but not in a specific, not as an environment variable. So I will just show you the manifest of that for the sake of time. Say for example, podvol.yml, and over here podvol.yml. Let's try to analyze what have I done here. So the name over here, as you can see, is the name is pod1. The file name that I'm using is podvol, so don't go by the name in that case. So here you can see I have used the same image but two volumes. One volume is I have given a name. One volume is I'm mounting it from the secret, and the entire the secret name is db secret, and this is the config name where the name is app config, and this is what I am mounting over here in the volumes. Now let's talk about how my containers will be able to access this. So they will be able to access it using volume mounts and the name, and this is the mount path. So ideally you would need to add another read-only key as well over here, which is available from let's see, there would be a pod definition over here somewhere below. Yes, so you would need to add this over there so that your container would only have the read-only privileges. So if I just go over here and add it, yeah. This is just to ensure that the pod does not rupture with the secret key or values or the configs, and it only has the read-only access. Okay, let's try to save it, and kubectl apply -f pod-vol.yml. Now it's created. kubectl get pods. So this is also running now, pod1. Now I will try to execute this kubectl exec this --. Now I'm trying to access those locations. So if you remember, I go up. This is where I'm expecting my secret is mounted to, and this is where my config map is mounted. So let's try to see the config map over here. Oh geez, 1 second. So here you can see that my db host and db port, they are mounted over here. So if I want to access a value, so I just simply did a cat over here, and you can see, just ignore the bash terminal prompt over here, the value is localhost. Okay, and if I want to get hold of the port, it's 3306. Now if I try to access the secret volume over there, and there I had db password added, and you see over here, super secret. So instead of base 64 encryption over here, I could see the exact value got mounted over here and I'm able to access it. So this is how you are able to access config maps and secret values from a pod, either through using mounting the config maps or secrets as volumes, and using volume mounts from the containers would be able to access them, or you can use it as environment variables. To clean up the mess over here, so kubectl delete secrets. Let's see what happens. db-secret. So the secret is deleted, and also config map, say for example -config. If I do that, and kubectl delete pod 1 and pod env. So that's all about it. So if you delete it as well, like no trace of any of the secrets are currently available, and it's quite easily cleared, and that's how you actually use a config map and secret. So hope you like this video. If you have any kind of questions, just let me know. I would be glad to answer them in the comment section. You can also alternatively reach out to me over LinkedIn. I'm happy to take any other questions that you have. Wishing you a great day ahead. Bye-bye.